Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the second episode of the Junior Soccer Focus with Aidan Ryan. Aidan, we got a great response to the first episode of the podcast. I mean, people were even very nice to you, talking about your knowledge of junior football. So has that come as a surprise to you?
I suppose it has really, Adrian, but listen, there's a lot of good football people out in Limerick. And obviously the podcast has been enjoyable for them, and it's something different as well, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. It's to have the privilege to host this podcast as well. In another busy week, we're into the third round of fixtures this week that we're previewing. A whirlwind few days at the start of the Premier Division campaign. There's nowhere better to start than Crewe Park and Ballinanty, it's fair to say, Aidan. I was at the Ballinanty and Mungret game and obviously interviewed Dave Dunphy. Unfortunately, we had a few issues, so I couldn't put out the actual video interview, but I could certainly tell when I brought up the Crewe Park game that Dave Dunphy, it stirred something up different in him, you know, that inner city rivalry again, and he admitted that he felt that was what the league was about without being disrespectful to the teams outside of that. You know, a real, I suppose, mouthwatering clash, and considering as well, Crewe Park, 2 wins from 2 on their return to the Premier. They've beaten Mungret, they've beaten Coona, and obviously Ballinanty, you know, losing out, you know, narrowly to Pike and then defeating Mungret quite comfortably on Sunday. So it's all set up to be a really exciting clash in Crewe.
Yeah, it's a real Premier clash, isn't it, Adrian? I think there'll be a huge crowd there, and people will be looking forward to it, especially up in Crewe then as well. Or is it in Balla at home, is it?
It's actually Crewe at home, Aidan, yeah.
Crewe, yeah. So should be a cracker of a game. I saw the Crewe game on Sunday, Adrian, against Coona. Enjoyed the match. At times lacked a lot of quality, but Crewe have that blend of experience that we were talking about in the first chat we had. Jonathan Grant, Aaron Noonan, Jamie O'Sullivan, Pa Boyle, Gary Griffin, Mark Slattery, Evan Maloney. All these lads have a lot of Premier experience, know how the game is played, know how to manage matches. They scored 5 goals. Ironically, 4 set pieces of the 5, 4 set pieces. Some of the goals really poor defending on Coona's part. But listen, you have to take your chances when they present themselves. Jonathan Grant with 2 headed goals, typical headed goals by Jonathan. Aaron Noonan took advantage of a rather poor defensive slip and scored a handy goal, I thought. Crewe looked comfortable enough. First 15 or 20 minutes, I thought Coona played the better football, but once the first goal went in, I thought Crewe were in cruise control after that.
And I saw the team sheet for Crewe, obviously Sunday, but the very first night when they played Mungret, Aidan, and I saw, as you said, the players you mentioned with the amount of experience behind them, you know, a lot of them Premier winners in the past. And in one way, I was kind of half surprised because I thought, well, is that the way to go? But considering the results from Albert Slattery, he seems to know what he was doing and he needed that experience to start off and try and get results early.
Absolutely, and no better players to give it to him than the lads we've mentioned. And probably a few more to come in there as well, Adrian, that weren't there. I didn't see Adam Frahel there.
He's actually on the substitutes bench, so he'll be due in as well, I suppose.
Yeah, I didn't see Mark McGrath there. Two more players with huge experience at this level. But on the other side of things, Adrian, I saw 2 young lads who I was very impressed with. And in fact, I thought they were the best players on the pitch. David Power at right full and Adam Dorr out in the left side of the pitch. Very, very impressed with the 2 young lads, the composure they showed, the ability to go past players. Young Power, also a decent defender. Good engine on him, got up and down the pitch. Adam Dorr, very, very skillful. Also very direct, which was great to see from a left-sided player, and caused Coona no endless amount of trouble.
Yeah, and as I said, I was at the game myself on Sunday between Ballinanty and Mungret, the opponents for Crewe, on Thursday night. For the first 25 minutes, Aidan, it was I would have expected. It was very tight between the 2 teams, you know. Then, you know, Ballinanty got the first goal. They got 3 goals then in 15 minutes and took control. They were quite impressive in the attacking third of the pitch from the first goal on, to be fair. We mentioned the players last week, the likes of Habibine Gabido. You've got the likes of Cian Fitzgerald played midfield, Cian Power as well, also there, that came from Premier A. I said that to Dave Dunphy. They look like they've a point to prove at this level. I suppose you're going now from playing Mungret. They're really impressed. They're going to have a totally different challenge now against Crewe, and Thursday, because as you said, these guys are inexperienced, young, maybe fiery. They'll be certainly tested by the likes of Mark Slattery and the other experienced crew lads.
Yeah, they'll learn a lot about themselves Thursday night, Adrian. Again, Bella, I also noticed that he freshened the team up, Dave, a bit.
Yeah.
He made a lot of changes from the first match. So everybody in the squad now, bar maybe one or two, has had ample game time. So it'll be interesting to see what kind of a selection he goes with against Carew. But listen, they'll be very disappointed with the first match, losing out at the last minute. By all accounts, they were winning the game against Pike and probably slightly on top. And to lose to such a cheap goal with no time to recover would have hurt them. Plus the fact they would view Pike as potential one of top 4 rivals, maybe top 5 rivals. So they'll be disappointed with that. But to bounce back the way they did on Sunday and to win so comprehensively, because I thought they were going to win the game Sunday, but I didn't think they'd win as comprehensively as they did, because Richie Burke's Mungers are normally a fairly solid outfit. And, you have to earn your goals against Mungers normally. So very, very good 3 points for Ballinanty. They'll be going up there now on a high.
Yeah, absolutely. I know I was slagging last week, Aidan, about sitting on the fence. This one, because of the form of the teams going into the tie from Sunday, was very hard to call. If I was going for a prediction, I certainly went for a draw on this one. What's your own prediction here?
I think Bala will get the 3 points.
Oh, fairly sticking the neck out in the line there in a way of victory. We haven't went for many of them last week, that's for sure. You mentioned Mungret there, Aidan, so that will bring us on to the next game. You've got Mungret hosting Charleville and these two teams both will be desperate for points considering the starts that they've made. I know Richie said that, Ballinanty obviously is a bit of a free hit for them. He's looking at the likes of Charleville, he's looking at the likes of Kuna in the coming week where they've got to pick up results. Slight bit of pressure, I suppose, because as you said, Richie's teams, notoriously have made it very hard for, even the top teams to beat them. It's only the odd goal generally, or maybe 2 goals maximum, but they were fairly comprehensively beaten on Sunday, which I know will have hurt the whole Mungret team. So they will certainly be looking for a response. And then Charleville, maybe different circumstances. They were 3-0 down against Pike at half time. Then, as Adam Castle said, they won the second half 1-0, which might, see them come in with a bit of confidence coming into this Mungret game.
Yeah, and he'll have to take the positives from it, Adrian. But the other side of the coin is, I've been saying this in the last podcast, you need to get into the habit of not conceding goals. And even though you're playing teams that, you probably mightn't accept to get anything out of in the 2 first games they had, they still conceded 8 goals. And that would be a worry. So this will be another big test now for Charleville playing Mungers. Richie will be looking to get his 3 points here. There's no doubt about that. Could be a tough game for them though. But they have, as we say, added that bit of experience to the team. He'll definitely be looking at last Sunday, the fact that they conceded four goals, conceded 2 goals in the first game against Crewe. So a bit of work to be done now before this game Thursday night. Very important game, even this early in the season, Adrian. Very, very important game for both sides, trying to get something out of it. Charleville, I think we're missing a few players, to the best of my knowledge, that are still to come back into that squad. Not sure about Richie. I think Richie's not far off a full squad there now at the moment. So he'll be looking big time to get the 3 points. Really could be a really tight game.
Yeah, I think so. And Richie did make 4 changes at half time after they went 3-0 down. And one of the changes he made in personnel then was he put Aled Harkin back at the centre of the back 3 and had Donny Curtin outside him on the left. I just wonder, because of conceding 5 goals against Charleville in a game at home like that, do you think he'll pack that defence with experience on Thursday night against Charleville, not to concede anything cheap like you were saying? Yeah,
well, if the 2 boys if Donny Curtin and Aled Harkin are fit to play, I certainly would be playing them, and I think Richie will. And the other thing is, will he stick with the 3 at the back? It'll be an interesting thing to see what he does exactly with the formation of the team, because it's a game really he'll need to be going. Not necessarily need to be going out and winning, but you got to be targeting 3 points.
Yeah, definitely, because home form was quite important for them last year as well. To move on now to the third game to discuss, it'll be Nina taking on Kuna. Obviously a tough enough trip in a midweek for Kuna, to go to Nina. I know people say it's only 20-25 minutes out the road, but in the travelling and that, it all adds up when it's not close by. Nina have had 2 narrow defeats, and you've had obviously the defeat on the opening night 2-0 to Regional, then lost 1-0 with a Conor Ellis goal. I believe Nina were right in the game on Sunday and quite unlucky maybe not to snatch a draw from it at times. It looks like just from the starting point, without reading too much into it, if you were to look at the stats, like that maybe goals might be hard to come by for that Nina side.
Yeah, I didn't see Ryan Gilmartin in the team Sunday, by the way. I think he played the first game as well. I see him back playing with Nina. Maybe Mark McKenna also missing, as far as I know. Yeah, but goals are scarce. Very hard to find a guy that's going to score you 15 or 20 goals in this league, Adrian. And normally, if you do find that guy, you're going to finish well up the table. If you can get a guy that will score you 15 or 20 league goals. I saw Kuna on Sunday. No Jermiles. Not sure what the story is there. Maybe he's been holidays or work commitments or whatever. Kuna, as I said, started really well in that game without looking like they were going to score. I thought they passed the ball really well, but when they got into the last third, I thought they ran out of ideas a bit. Gordon McKevitt, the everlasting, long-lasting Gordon McKevitt scored a really good goal for Kuna, but when they were 4-0 down, really good finish. Not so sure where the goals are going to come from. He did make a few changes at half-time and brought on Brian Moriarty and Ian Considine, which improved them a bit. At that stage, they were 3-0 down, so how you look into that improvement, how to judge. Conceded 4 goals from set pieces, so that wasn't looking too good. Thought the organisation at set piece level was quite poor, so big improvement needed there. I think Nina will get the 3 points here. Actually, the reports came back from Nina that they put up, or from the regional game, that they put up quite a good display in the second half, and obviously they need goals as well, but it could be a tight 1-0.
Yeah, I have Nina down for the victory here as well. But I suppose I looked at Pat Sheehan's highlights of the game, Aidan. I know you were at them, and I mean I felt like I was tearing my hair out looking at some of maybe the defending from the set pieces. Not that I'd be brilliant at it myself by any stretch, but Paddy Hickey must have been really disappointed because of the fact that you're going up against the Crew Park side where they can score goals from anywhere anyway, but when you're gifting them goals at that ease, they just can't happen on a regular basis for them, as you said.
Absolutely not. And when you have players in the opposition, the calibre of Mark Slattery, Jonathan Grant, Gary Griffin, who are all prolific in the air at set piece level, you have to devise a plan to make sure you can stop that. And in the end, the scoring probably even flattered Kuna a bit, because in the last 15 minutes, Crew Park missed several chances, and wasn't for Ronan Ryan's, I would say, defensive heroics in the last 15 minutes with the blocks and interceptions he got, it could have been more.
Yeah, so we're both down for a Nina victory on that one. There's another tie here now. Pike Rovers against Janesborough, the near neighbours, battle it out. I mean, I suppose, Aidan, when you were involved with Janesborough, with Shane O'Hanlon, there was a different feel to this game, without any disrespect to the current Janesborough side that are there. To be fair to them, they had Anacotty really shaking for long periods of that game on Sunday. I know it was 2-2 coming into maybe close to the 70th minute before Anacotty got their third goal, and Janesborough probably ran out of steam because of the lack of squad that Shane currently has, which I know he will say, as you know as well as me, he'll be working on behind the scenes. But they did, give a good account of themselves. To do that again in the space of 4 days against another maybe league favourite, that's going to be a very tough task for Janesborough.
Yeah, I suppose it's quite ironic, Adrian. A couple of years ago, this game would be the game of the night, and you'd have crowds flock to it. So it's amazing the way things turn in junior football so quickly in the space of a few years. Pike are getting the players back. You can see the squad from Sunday. A couple of players coming back on the bench, starting to look a little bit stronger. Possibly more to come back for this match.
Steve McGann will be there too, won't he? So that'll be another big boost.
After Grand Adrian, haven't they? I mean, they'll be delighted with the first victory, given the strength of the squad with so many missing, to come out with 3 points against an arch rival like Ballinanty Rovers, and to score the way they did in the last minute. Then to go out to Charleville, lead 3-0, probably made a few changes at half time to give fellas game time. I know Charleville improved in the second half, but obviously Robbie Williams would have said, listen, we'll make a few changes here and give people game time. An away fixture on AstroTurf, coming away with a 3-1 victory, 6 points on the board, they'll be delighted. Obviously meeting a Janesborough squad that's considerably under strength at the moment. like I said in the previous meeting, Adrian, I wouldn't underestimate Shane Hanlon's ability to strengthen the squad, and he will strengthen it in the next couple of weeks. But it'll be too late for this match, and you would expect the Pike to win comfortably here, despite Janesborough's heroics on Sunday when they held a much fancied Ashling up to 65 minutes, 70 minutes, 2-1, which is to be applauded. But there are no moral victories in junior football either, Adrian. At the end of the day, they didn't get anything out of the match.
Yeah, absolutely, and that is it. And I have also went for a home win on that one, Aidan. I think that would be certainly the bookies' favourite on that fixture. It brings us now to the last fixture, Aidan, and there's I suppose in some ways at the moment with Prospect, Aidan, there's a tinge of sadness, in terms of the way things have worked for Prospect, because it's only maybe I think it's 4 years ago now since Derek Bradish took them up to the Premier Division. Ever since then, there just seems to have been a kind of a dwindling of players leaving every season. That's got to the point now where it's effectively just a full B team going out for Prospect. And to be fair to those lads, they're keeping the show on the road. But when you're playing against the quality opposition in Premier, you'll get away with that in 1B and 1A and the likes. But in Premier level, it's going to be hard. I mean, you play Fairview of all teams. I know Fairview haven't maybe set the world alight in terms of goals so far, but they've 2 victories on the board. They've beaten Nina away from home and they've won on the opening night against Kuna. They have a strong squad still there, to be fair. So I know there's been a lot of rumours, Aidan, about maybe will Prospect last the season at Premier level. I don't know if you've heard any more from your contacts on that.
Well, I haven't heard anything official yet, Adrian, on it, but the bottom line is if you're relying on 8, 9, 10 B players to fulfill your Premier fixtures, that can't go on. It's unfair on those players, first of all, as well, because obviously as second team players, they would have ambitions of winning their own league, and that second team have got off to a decent start. They won their first game 7-1 against Cardiff B, and they drew 4-4 against Newtown on Sunday. Now, Sunday's result, they were 4-2 up with 10 minutes left, and unfortunately for them, ran out of steam, and we know why they ran out of steam, because they were playing regional on Sunday morning. Now, there are 2 sides to every story, obviously, but the optics of this don't particularly look good for one side, and it's not the people behind Prospect, who have been absolutely fantastic the last few years. They backed their manager 100% last season, and they had a good season last season when you look at it overall, out of town in the Munster Junior, out of town in the FAI, and stayed up and were safe in the Premier League, albeit in the last game of the season. Reappointed the manager in the summer, backed him 100%. There was nothing that isn't available to that manager that within reason that the club would supply to him. And we find with 2 to 3 weeks before the start of the season that a lot of players haven't been retained or contacted. And then 2 or 3 days before the season, this manager has left. And ironically, he's playing for another club on the same night as the club he was due to manage were playing. Very, very disappointing. As I said in the previous night, very disconcerting. A lot of great people in the background for Prospect. It's so sad to see what's happening. Can it continue? Let's not sugarcoat it, Adrian. It can't. It can't continue. How can you ask B players to fulfill these fixtures every week? And when you get to Sundays, how are they going to manage? How are they going to play a match on a Sunday morning and then go out and play another match at 2:00 Sunday afternoon? It's just not going to happen. Now, what will happen in the next week or two, I obviously don't know. But as a former Prospect man, it hurts me deeply to see what's happening.
Absolutely, and it is, as you said, very unfair on the players involved that are trying to keep the show on the road for 2 teams at the club, which they certainly did not sign up for, to be fair. Yeah, it's a strange one, Aidan, because I look at players now, and obviously I speak to a lot of players, maybe not too personally, to be honest with you, just in a kind of a professional sense, if you want to use that term. But I do feel now like, the bite is gone out of players, Aidan. I think every player wants to be on winning teams. There doesn't seem to be anyone that's able to take their beating anymore. I mean, I know that sounds very simplistic, but teams just do not want to be in a relegation battle, and unfortunately, not every team can win every week. Yeah,
which is why I suggested to you in our last chat that a lot of players who are now sitting on benches with what we'll say are the top 5-6 teams don't trickle down and join teams that are in the bottom 5-6. They're now going down lower, even lower than some of them than Premier A and 1A. And I look, as you know, I'm still playing the game. And last season, I was playing against lads who have Munster Junior Cup medals and are young lads in their 20s down in the division I was playing. And you have to question why is that happening? And like we said before, the demographics of football are changing between family and work, but also between fellas who don't have that voice, don't have that ambition. And I'm consequently also worried then about the top six, bottom six as a result of that, because I feel that a lot of clubs don't have the ambition to go into the top six. And if your club don't have the ambition, and possibly your managers don't have the ambition, well, then the players aren't going to have the ambition to keep rising up the league with the club they have joined.
Yeah, certainly, and that is a frustrating situation if it is to play out again this year. I suppose another, obviously, as I said, the rumours are there, and we've seen it now last year with Holy Cross. Holy Cross were in Premier A. They played a few games. I think it was more than two, to be fair. Now they played 4 or 5 games, then struggled, pulled out of the league. And obviously, as the rule states at the moment, then if you do try and fulfil at least 2 fixtures, you don't get relegated directly from Premier to the bottom division in Limerick. You go to the division below you. That's where you'll start. It runs the risk, I suppose. Just say, for instance, if Prospect were to leave and then they go to Premier A, Somerville did that a few years ago as well. If I recall, you had Holy Cross. I know there's rumours of 1 or 2 other teams to do that as well. Had Carconlish, had went as well not so long ago and done the same thing a few years ago as well. Does that rule need to be looked at, Aidan? Because, that can be abused as well. And then the next season, if the clubs do sign players, it's a house of cards again, isn't it? Because I've seen that happen with clubs this year.
Yeah, it possibly does have to be looked at. The rule years ago, by all accounts, was when a player when a team pulled out, that they were shoved down to Division 4. Did it happen to our Rovers a few years ago?
Yes, they were the last, I remember. Yeah.
Yeah, the few last teams that has happened to. There is no doubt that there are clubs out there that would possibly take advantage of that. I suppose you do have to admire Geraldines last year, Adrian.
Yeah.
Despite the problems they had, saw the season, and endeared to get a team out every single week. I would suggest you that the difference between the Prospect situation and the Geraldines situation is markedly different, in that Geraldines did go into the season with the manager they appointed, and he endeavoured to get out the team every week. And they did have a squad at the start of the season, but progressively lost players as the season went on. Prospect situation is a little bit different, in that they have been literally left in the lurch in the last week, in terms of the manager leaving. And they were under the impression that within reason everything wasn't too bad in the background. And it obviously wasn't, in terms of player retention, etc. So their situation is slightly different. I don't think any reasonable committee would want to pull out their team out of Premier football. The optics aren't good for the club. And the optics, of course, aren't going to be good for the league either, because this will go nationwide and it won't look good for the league.
Yeah, absolutely.
It is a team.
Aidan, as well, I just want to make clear that I certainly wasn't suggesting that it was a Prospect abusing the rules, to be fair. I was just saying that in a broader sense, that it absolutely could be, absolutely. Like, I do know that it's unfair, as you said, on the Prospect squad, the likes of Jerry McMahon, who works very hard behind the scenes for Prospect as well, and it is a disaster that you're going into the Munster Junior Champions, and you're asking your players who didn't sign up for it literally to go in there and fulfill the fixture. Going into Fairview, as you said as well, Aidan, it's funny because you did say if there's not goals in this Fairview team with the front three they haven't scored more than 3 in the first 2 games, which people probably thought they would have. Is there a bit of a difference in approach, Aidan, this year, because they kind of had, I suppose, in some ways a star-studded squad in terms of bench as well included. Last season, I looked at the bench. And Paul Danner did say to me before the season started that they were going to be a bit more reliant on younger players, youth players, and B players to fulfill the bench this year, rather than maybe having a full first team squad. You have the likes of Jason Cross and Wayne Colbert actually started the game on Sunday for Fairview. You had the likes of Jack Cross and Ben O'Shaughnessy on the bench, who had played against Corbley United on the Saturday night when they gave us a real trouncing. But I suppose, do you think that there's a bit of a difference, or will Paul Danner still be looking to recruit a few more?
I think Paul Danner will be still looking to recruit a few more. I mean, you're bringing in players of the quality of Conor Ellis, Jake Dillon. I think you're going to be looking to add to that in the next 3 to 4 weeks. No, I will say that the second team they had playing the Premier A, so they're playing at a good high standard, and they have been producing some good youth players the last few years. So if obviously if the youth players, they feel the youth players are good enough, they're going to put them on the bench and give them opportunity. But a few young players have left also this season, Adrian, and they didn't hold on to them. They didn't manage to hold on to them. So Conor Keane was there, wasn't he? Owned up.
Yeah, Unduff has gone to Region United. Yes, yeah, that was one player. And
Adrian Maloney. Yeah, so they didn't stay. I would think that if quality players become available, that Fairview will be going after them.
Certainly, yes, and I'm not going to be disrespectful to Prospect and not look for a prediction. Obviously, we do think Fairview are going to win the game, but with respect, we'll both say our predictions. Aidan, and what was your own prediction for this?
Well, obviously, Fairview are going to win, and you'd expect them to win comfortably. If Conor Ellison, the likes of Darragh Rainsford, and Conor Coughlin are on the pitch, it's going to be a long night for Prospect, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I suppose that concludes our information and our preview for the Thursday night games. It's going to be another busy weekend, Aidan. Sunday morning as well, there's fixtures galore on. Exciting time of the year, as we've discussed already. I assume you'll be around the town floating, looking at fixtures yourself over the coming days. Yes,
we'll take in one Thursday night for definite, and we'll probably take in Crewe and Bala Thursday night. Is it Crewe and Pike on Sunday?
As far as I'm aware, yes.
Another tasty encounter there. So plenty of games for people to enjoy, and some crackers there as well.